She astonished me when she descended the stairs with a jar and requested to #a True Infidelity Story. Emily was a friendly young woman, just slightly older than my eldest daughter, who is 35. Our paths have crossed on multiple occasions. At the school events where my wife was employed, I became aware of the frequent interactions between her and Emily, and I found myself unwittingly entangled in the unfolding drama of Emily's divorce. Based on my observations, her former spouse epitomized the very definition of selfishness and thoughtlessness. His reputation for seeking the company of other women during work trips preceded him, and when the truth of his infidelity came to light, he evaded accountability. Instead, he cast blame upon Emily, asserting that she had fallen short of his expectations in their relationship. He claimed she lacked the necessary affection and allure, even going so far as to attribute his own failings at home to her perceived inadequacies. What compels me to share this with you? It is the Friday evening preceding the opening day of deer season, and instead of making my customary journey to the cabin with my wife, I find myself en route to collect Emily, a moment nearly 12 years in the making. My wife and I seized the chance to acquire 20,000 acres of Missouri forest, a lush expanse brimming with oaks and pines, all at an exceptional price. Since that time, we have dedicated countless hours to the construction of a quaint weekend cabin, meticulously carving out ATV trails and preparing food plot areas to attract wildlife. United in our efforts, we have elevated the property into a remarkable sanctuary for deer. This trip, usually a cherished tradition between my wife and me, took an unexpected turn. During dinner a few weeks back, she revealed that she would not be accompanying me for the opening weekend of hunting season. She was chosen to participate in a series of discussions regarding educational reform at the state capitol, a location we humorously call the Big House. Though it was a privilege for her, it struck me as a burden. Typically, I would have ventured into the wilderness on my own. Having partaken in this endeavor countless times before, I found myself facing a new reality after a slight cardiac episode earlier in the year. My wife, with concern etched in her voice, urged me to refrain from spending the weekend alone in the woods. In spite of my protests, she orchestrated for Emily to join me on her first hunting expedition. Despite Emily's assertions of her skill with a firearm, she had yet to experience the thrill of hunting deer. Moreover, this event happened to align with my birthday, a day on which my wife would be absent. As I reached Emily's home, I let out a quick honk of the horn, an act I usually avoid, yet one that was requested of me this time. The front door swung open, revealing Emily, who seemed weighed down by an impressive array of gear. Embracing my position as her guide and mentor for the weekend, I stepped out of the truck to help her with her belongings. Describing her as talkative barely scratches the surface, she kept an unbroken flow of conversation during the entire journey to the cabin. As she filled the atmosphere with conversation, words like cheerful, bubbly, and energetic sprang to mind, creating a striking contrast to the reserved and reticent individual my wife had described in the months prior. I found no reason to object, as her exuberance was far more appealing than despondency, especially considering the small hunting blind that awaited us for several hours of confinement. We reached the cabin at approximately 9 in the evening. I swiftly began the setup, turning on the power, water, and heating systems, even though the nighttime temperature was expected to dip to around 50 degrees. Awakening in a warm cabin was far more desirable than in a cold one. By 9:30, the fire crackled in the wood stove, sending warm air swirling into the main room. Emily had settled into the loft, her chosen sleeping space, and was busy arranging her gear for the upcoming morning. In the meantime, I settled into the great room, activating the satellite receiver to see if I was witnessing the finale of a timeless war film. Should I make use of the shower, she will surely call down. I agreed, saying, "Of course, go ahead," from the upper level. Having showcased the cabin's singular bathroom, crafted with an emphasis on efficiency, the dwelling relied on a wood stove for warmth and harnessed solar energy, with a backup generator for additional support. The bathroom boasted a unique design, characterized by 2 large sliding doors, one opening into the bedroom and the other into the great room. When opened, these doors allowed warm air to flow freely, yet when closed, they provided an intimate sense of privacy. A wave of pride washed over me, rooted in its practicality. Captivated by the film, I was startled when Emily appeared from the spiral staircase. As I sat near the sofa, my gaze was irresistibly captured by her passing figure, wrapped in nothing more than a small towel that barely veiled her silhouette. She made her way to the bathroom, the lower edges of the towel rising gracefully with her every step. As she approached the bathroom door, she teetered on the edge of disaster, juggling her soap, shampoo, and towel, almost losing her grip on the precarious pile before finally managing to slide the door shut behind her. The idea that she lacked appeal struck me as utterly absurd, leading me to shake my head in an effort to banish the thought and redirect my attention to the film. The sudden rush of water from the shower stirred unwelcome thoughts of Emily lingering just beyond the door, her possible entrance looming in the air. I chided myself, remembering that she was a friend of my wife, and that my role here was to teach her the art of hunting, not to indulge in unwelcome distractions. Yet her gentle melody seeped through the walls, intertwining with my attempts to focus. At last, the melody faded away, surrendering to the gentle murmur of flowing water, and I found myself untroubled by the thought of her depleting her resources. Though I had the luxury of hot water from the quick heater, I found myself astonished by the length of her delay. Her decision to do so brought me a sense of satisfaction. This evening I chose to take a shower instead of in the morning. I then recognized her voice, soft and undeniably filled with delight, echoing gently through the delicate bathroom walls. The dawning awareness of what was probably unfolding set my mind into a whirlwind. I chastised myself, striving to redirect my attention to the film. After what seemed like an endless stretch of time, the water finally quieted, and I caught the gentle sound of her humming. Once more, as she likely dried herself, I became utterly captivated by the vision of her within, completely exposed. Indeed, I acknowledge my strong desires, intricately linked to my persistent sex drive. My wife's lack of interest isn't wholly to blame. After all, when the organs that generate those vital hormones are removed, it becomes a challenge to experience any longing. Our mutual care runs deep. Yet the disparities that have emerged over the past few years have given rise to a considerable number of disagreements. We continue to seek a solution, grappling with the necessary steps to ignite her desire for intimacy more frequently, perhaps once a month. This endeavor is proving to be quite frustrating, as our evenings have shifted from moments of connection to mere rest, overshadowing any semblance of affection. "Much better," she remarked, swinging the door open and draping a towel partially over her body as she gracefully descended the stairs. The towel draped across her chest, while another portion was employed to absorb the moisture from her damp hair. A third section rested between her legs, leaving her sides and back bare to the air. As she ascended the stairs, I found myself unable to avert my gaze from her largely exposed form. A fragment of my being felt a strange sense of relief as she ascended the stairs and vanished from view. "I truly value the invitation extended by your wife. Out here, I believe I'm about to have an incredible time," she remarked, as she made her way down the stairs once more. Clad in a pair of snug navy blue shorts and a cropped white top that barely reached her waist, she descended the stairs and glided past me, just close enough to settle onto the sofa beside me, cradling what seemed to be an empty jar of peanut butter. "Indeed, tomorrow promises to be intriguing," I replied, a hint of unease creeping in. "You're not typically one to shy away, are you? If you identify as female, I could carry out this task in a different location." Articulated with compassion, "Is that right?" "I tend to be quite confident," I replied, my mind lingering on her comment, as she deftly twisted open the jar of peanut butter and set the lid aside. In a gesture that seemed entirely instinctive, she peeled away her shirt, revealing her left breast in its entirety. I found myself frozen in place, watching intently as she carefully poured milk into the jar. "Lindsay noted that you have always been a steadfast supporter of her breastfeeding all your children, while she mentioned that my husband found it distasteful." I agreed, my thoughts lingering on the sight of her bare breast cradled in her hand. In that era, breastfeeding enjoyed widespread acceptance. However, it seems that modern society is experiencing a regression, once again complicating the act of breastfeeding. "The only approach available to me is to express milk while I am at work," she said. "You used to." I provided her with assistance in that regard, particularly with the task of pumping milk. On numerous occasions I extended my assistance to her, and I am confident that she valued it. With a soft murmur, Crystal leaned in, carefully pouring more milk into the jar. She had always been a figure of my imagination, a presence I envisioned would come to life. I yearn. It is hard to imagine that anyone would perform such an act for me, My husband would never partake in anything of that sort, she murmured softly as she placed the jar on the sofa, nestled between her knees, and slipped off her crop top, revealing her bare skin above the waist. What do you imply by merely this once? Could you possibly undertake this task for me? I longed to witness. I asked about the feeling. Amazed. Do express some milk for me, I am sure. Lindsay would not raise any objections. After all, it is simply milk. I began to voice my objections, fully conscious that my wife would not approve of my hand straying to another woman's breasts, especially those of a friend of hers. I am certain she would not, mind, Crystal declared, as she retrieved the jar from its resting place between her legs, leaning over my lap. Her left arm nestled between the sofa arm and my left leg, her bare back brushing against my abdomen. She remarked, "Now you can effortlessly reach over me and tend to my other side." With a soft tone, I started to express my concerns to Crystal, indicating that this situation felt quite inappropriate. "Oh, do come now. It shall be deemed acceptable." She remarked that I would only be extracting a small amount of milk from her breast, to which I responded, "No, we are definitely not going down that path." I whispered in astonishment, unable to fathom that she would suggest such a notion. She let out a gentle sigh, conveying that it felt distinct as my hand tightened once more. I let out a sigh, wishing fervently that this would not find its way to Lindsay. I started to carefully explore her breast with my hands. "Your hands are both strong and gentle. I find it difficult to express just how delightful this sensation is," she remarked. I responded, "Provided you keep this from Lindsay, I assure you I am confident she would not mind. Yet if you prefer, I will hold my tongue. It is beneficial, for I am convinced she would remove me for this," I remarked. As I persisted in pressing her soft breast and filling the jar with milk, she softly noted, "That's enough." Gently retracting my hand from her breast, I placed it on her taut, flat abdomen, mere inches from the waistband of her shorts. She carefully set the jar of milk beside me on the sofa, turning her head to look up at me. She then adjusted her position on my lap, turning to face me, her form pressed closely against me. She grasped my hand again, leading it down to lay my palm flat against her stomach, a gesture that undeniably stirred something within me. She let go of my hand, her fingers gracefully moving to unsnap her shorts with a soft click. The sound of the zipper unfurling filled the air, its tiny teeth separating as she gently pulled it down. My heart started to race. "Crystal," I began, but she silenced me with a gentle finger to my lips, whispering, "Shoo, please let us remain silent. I long to savor the warmth of your embrace, for it has been far too long since anyone has held me like this," she expressed. She expressed herself with clarity. She gently took hold of my wrist, guiding my hand downward as she raised one leg, her foot finding its place over the upper edge of the sofa, parting her legs and leading my hand to the center of her being. "Crystal, I implore you, keep going. I yearn to experience the warmth of another's presence," she pleaded. "This feels so good," as she reached out for physical contact with me for a change. "Your fingertips possess a gentle grace, harmoniously paired with a firm touch. Truly, Lindsay is fortunate to experience such a blend." Indeed, I mourned my situation as she seized the waistband of my sweatpants, drawing them down, leading to an intimate encounter. I lingered there for what felt like an eternity, my eyes fixed blankly on the television, only dimly aware that the film had ended long ago. At last, I snuffed out the light and settled in for the night, slipping into a cozy pair of flannel pajamas before nestling beneath the covers. Morning broke, or rather, the relentless beeping of the alarm urged me to awaken and silence its clamor. I rose from the bed and made my way, somewhat unsteadily, into the bathroom. Having finished my usual morning rituals, I made my way back to the bedroom to get dressed. It was only upon shedding my garments that the realization struck me. I was not alone in this moment. I swiftly locked the doors to the bedroom and bathroom, ensuring she couldn't make her way down before I was ready. As I prepared for a brisk morning that would soon give way to unexpectedly warm temperatures, I chose to wear lightweight thermal underwear beneath my usual camouflage hunting gear. Clad in my attire and boots, I made my way to the kitchen, raising my voice to summon Emily from the loft to rouse her from slumber. "Very well," she responded, her voice tinged with a lingering drowsiness. I sensed her presence. I caught the sound of footsteps on the stairs and turned to witness her gracefully making her way down the spiral staircase, still brushing the remnants of sleep from her eyes, utterly bare. Her breasts, full and heavy with milk, seemed to swell even more than the night before, swaying gently with each step she took. She stifled a yawn and said, "I'll be there for breakfast in a minute," before making her way to the bathroom, leaving the door ajar. As I stood in the kitchen, my perspective was confined, my attention consumed by the enticing sizzle of bacon. As she stepped into the light, unadorned, she reached for a jar of peanut butter nestled in the fridge. Taking a seat at the kitchen table, she leaned forward, gently expressing milk from her right breast into the jar. I remarked with a subtle frown as I turned the bacon, "Perhaps it would be wise to put on some clothes." "Do you not enjoy the sight of me unclothed?" I asked without lifting my eyes, not suggesting that you take pleasure in it. Indeed, however, when it comes to clothing, I forego any at home once the girls have retired for the evening. This is not your home. If it genuinely troubles you, I can take action, but it appears unwarranted at this time as breakfast is almost ready. It is wise to don warm attire for the excursion. If you continue down that path, the chill of the outside world will soon envelop you. I noted that I have a plentiful supply of warm clothing, she commented, shifting her left breast, which appeared to have taken on a fuller shape compared to the right. With a careful hand, I lifted the beef from the stove, allowing it to rest, before transferring the blended eggs into a separate pan, ready to be transformed into a fluffy scramble. As the eggs reached their perfect state of readiness, she had already fulfilled her obligation. It was a simple relief as she stood, still bare, and made her way up the stairs to get dressed, while I headed to the shed to fetch the ATV. "Ready? Are you ready?" I asked her when she would make her appearance. About 10 minutes later, outside the cabin, her breath formed delicate clouds in the crisp morning air. "I hold that belief." "Weapon? Verify. Are we talking about ammunition?" "Check," she declared with a smile. With a sense of readiness, I climbed onto the ATV, my gear securely in place, and reached out to help her onto the vehicle. She climbed onto the footrest and settled into the seat behind me, gripping her gun and pack tightly with one hand. I took hold of the gun and placed it securely in the second holder before setting off on our journey to the hunting spot, which was ideal, a small pond nestled beside a generous food plot. The weather held little significance, for I had crafted a permanent elevated blind ample enough for two, initially designed for hunting alongside my granddaughter when she came of age. Crystal nestled against me for warmth as we journeyed through the chill of the night, gliding along at a steady pace of about 15 miles per hour. We paused roughly 100 yards from the location to avoid startling the deer. "Text," I declared that we would walk from this point, as I retrieved her gun from the holder and offered it to her. "What is the distance?" she asked. "Just 100 yards? I sought to prevent any distress by keeping a respectful distance while maneuvering the ATV. Although the ATV itself is not a natural threat, mature bucks possess the keen ability to sense its presence and subsequently avoid the vicinity. I gathered my pack, switched off the ATV's headlights, and turned on my red headlamp. The environment briefly surrendered to shadows as our eyes adjusted to the obscurity. We made our way along the trail to the food plot, crossed its expanse, and climbed into the blind. The structure was simple yet functional, consisting of 2 raised levels, adorned with a wooden floor and clad in metal siding and roofing. On a morning such as this, the chill in the air could be quite biting, yet the small enclosure soon became cozy with the warmth of our bodies as the sun began its ascent. I crafted the blind with deep brown walls and a roof, intended to capture warmth on those crisp autumn mornings. Within the confines of the room, I drew open the windows and settled back into a state of anticipation, my eyes gently closing, though not entirely surrendering to slumber. Yet, I found myself lingering in a state of semi-consciousness for nearly half an hour until the first light of dawn began to break. The sky shifted from an inky black to a rich deep purple, then to a dark blue adorned with hints of orange, finally giving way to a soft pale blue as the sunlight kissed the treetops awake. The conditions were perfect and the location held a fine reputation. Now all that was left was to patiently await the arrival of a deer. The firearm lay unloaded, for this outing was meant solely for the purpose of instructing Emily. "It's beautiful out here," she murmured softly. "Indeed, all we need now is a deer," I replied softly. "This location is truly exceptional. I have harvested nearly a dozen deer that approach the pond for water," she murmured quietly. For almost an hour we lingered in silence until at last, I caught the first stirrings of the day. The air was utterly tranquil, devoid of any breeze to stir the leaves, when a subtle movement about 100 yards away seized my focus at once. I leaned closer to Emily, my voice barely above a whisper as I gestured toward the deer that was tentatively making its way to the food plot. It was a young buck, its antlers slender and spiky, a stark contrast to the robust crowns of a mature deer. Younger bucks often exhibit a certain boldness that older bucks have long since tempered. If they manage to evade danger for a time, they gradually acquire the wisdom to sidestep reckless choices, such as straying into an exposed field during the hunting season. One might ponder how they discern the arrival of hunting season. Uncertainty lingered in the air, yet there was an undeniable instinct at play. Emily raised her rifle, the smooth metal glinting as she deftly maneuvered it through the front opening of the blind. Her gaze narrowed, focusing down the length of the clearing at the buck. With each subtle shift in her position, she meticulously adjusted her stance, aligning the shot through her scope, biding her time for the perfect moment when he would turn sideways. I suggested softly, observing the way he inhaled the aroma he sought. "He believes he has detected her scent, a notion that is all too predictable," she murmured, maintaining her patience as the buck leisurely made its way forward. A direct shot could be effective, yet it risks compromising a significant amount of quality meat by striking the stomach. I added a simple acknowledgement, and there he goes, turning broadside, aiming just behind his shoulder, and pulling the trigger as I had instructed. "Understood," she whispered, as the deer slowly pivoted to its right, exposing its flank while gliding toward the thicker underbrush by the pond. At any moment, I implored, striving to make certain she grasped her chance. What pierced the silence was a sharp click, devoid of gunfire, absent of recoil and free from smoke, just that singular resonant sound. Emily cursed under her breath, pulling back the rifle and deftly working the lever to chamber a round. Yet, as she adjusted her stance to take another shot, the buck had slipped away into the thicket, carrying her opportunity with it. "So, you chose not to load your rifle when we made camp?" I asked, doing my best to hold back my irritation. "I believed I did," she replied. With a sulky expression, I forced myself to stay put. "Serene, there exists the possibility of his return. I hold a sense of hopefulness," she observed, setting the rifle aside with a weary exhale. Following a momentary hesitation, she resumed with an air of regret. "Oops," I replied, reclining slightly as a sigh escaped my lips. While I personally would have declined that offer, for someone just starting out, any chance can be beneficial. We lingered in silence for about 10 minutes, each lost in our own thoughts, until she finally rose, or at least as much as the low seat permitted, and started to take off her jacket. "Are you feeling okay?" I posed a question. "I place my trust in you." She noted that the forecast indicated a chill in the air. "It's getting hot in here," she replied, the warmth already creeping past 70 degrees Fahrenheit as the sun poured down upon us. "But I promise it's not that warm outside." "I'm not sitting out there," she declared, tossing aside her jacket before beginning to unlace her boots. "What are you up to?" I murmured. "I'm taking off these long johns. I'm absolutely roasting," she murmured, as she slipped off one boot and then the other, standing with caution to avoid bumping her head against the metal. She deftly unbuttoned her camouflage pants. She eased her green thermal underwear down her legs before settling back into her seat. Once again she rose, sliding the fabric over her hips and down her legs. I couldn't help but notice as more of her skin was revealed, until she settled next to me, completely bare. "There," she said with a laugh. "Naked co-ed hunting." "Indeed," I responded, my eyes fixed and unyielding. "Would you do me the honor of joining me?" She commanded with a hint of challenge. "Undress." I am speaking of the deer. In this secluded spot, we remain unseen, and it seems improbable that anyone else would dare to disrobe or engage in such actions, she remarked, her astonishment palpable. "It wouldn't be co-ed naked hunting if you didn't," she said, a playful smile dancing on her lips. There was a moment of uncertainty. As I grappled with the intricacies of her proposal, I found myself muttering softly, "This is utterly inappropriate." "Alas, here we go once more. It is far more inappropriate for you to milk me while I recline on your lap," she retorted, asserting that this is far worse than our being unclothed in a deer blind. With a weary sigh, I noted that you wouldn't want me to share this with your wife, would you? Her eyes sparkled with a mischievous light, hinting that although I might be tempted to hold my tongue, It would be all too easy for her to sway me in the opposite direction. With a sly grin, if I understand your words correctly, should I shed my clothes, you won't reveal to her that I have done so. In a state of undress with you, I posed a question, seeking to understand. That appears to be correct, she replied. Her smile steadfast, I breathed out slowly, acknowledging that I was already ensnared in a dilemma. What is a touch more that captures the very essence, she observed. With a bright smile, I started to loosen the laces of my boots. In mere moments I had shed every article of clothing, while Crystal tossed each item out the window, leaving us both bare except for our boots. Now it's genuinely a game of naked co-ed hunting, she said with a chuckle. Indeed, I responded with a hint of dryness. She rose as high as the cramped surroundings allowed, pivoted and settled onto my lap, her back pressed against my chest, one leg elegantly draped over mine. She leaned closer, guiding my hands to her breasts, saying, I need to express some milk and I would prefer you to do it. This was simply an attempt to force my hand. She remarked, her disbelief evident, that as our closeness intensified, it started to eat away at me. I was betraying my wife not just once but twice and finding enjoyment in it. What kind of individual am I? What kind of husband? I came to the understanding that a confession was necessary, yet I contemplated the best approach to ensure that Emily would remain unharmed by my words. I suggested we make a sudden return. Shattering the silence is permissible, however, our garments remain outdoors, Crystal pointed out, to which I agreed with a nod. Text, you cast them out the window for my sake, I noted with a weak chuckle. Yet, the air outside is biting. I would surely succumb to the cold, she protested. If that is the cost, then let it be, I replied with confidence. Following a moment's hesitation, Crystal, though somewhat hesitant, rose to her feet and gathered our clothes, flinging them through the doorway before stepping in herself, a slight shiver coursing through her from the lingering cold beyond. The interior remained notably cool, especially as the door had been left slightly open during her search. She nestled back into my lap, seeking the comfort of my warmth. Without a second thought, I wrapped my arms around her, drawing her in tightly. We lingered in that embrace for several minutes, my hand softly tracing her form until she broke the stillness with a teasing whisper. Keep that up and you might just find yourself falling for me all over again. I'm sorry, I murmured, quickly pulling my hands back to settle on her waist. I'm not, she replied, grasping my hands and guiding them back to her chest. I found it quite enjoyable. I'm simply expressing that it stirs something within me. Once again, you might find yourself needing to love me anew. Upon our return, I find that suggestion less than ideal, as we are already committed. In light of the prevailing challenges, I approach the situation with a measured response, uncertain yet contemplative, eliciting a chuckle from her. Her tone danced with a playful spirit. Shall we indulge in a refreshing shower? As it is essential for our well-being? I wonder if we can find a way to meet each other's needs. I recognize the modest shower stall that Lindsay and I share, realizing too late the weight of my confession. Excellent, let us move forward, she said. With a bright spark of joy, she hoisted me from the bench and led me toward the shower. I found myself pondering the path that led me to this moment, and the potential consequences that could follow. We quickly slipped into our clothes, omitting underwear as it felt unnecessary considering our plans. The ride back to the cabin on the ATV unfolded in a hush, each of us lost in our personal musings. As we stepped inside, the welcoming embrace of the wood stove's warmth surrounded us, drawing us in as we carried our belongings through the door. Crystal swiftly shed her garments, unmistakably filled with anticipation. In pursuit of deeper connection, she chose not to come to me but instead ascended the spiral staircase to the loft, inviting me to join her with a gesture. I present to you something of interest, she called out, and I answered with enthusiasm, joining her side. I remained dressed in my boots and pants, yet devoid of anything more. She lingered by the bed, a cunning smile gracing her lips, her hands hidden away behind her back. There she was, poised as I drew near, offering me a delicate blue envelope. I scrutinized it, flipping it over to uncover image etched in the unmistakable script of my wife's hand. As I carefully peeled open the envelope, a birthday card revealed itself within. The cover bore the inscription, "To my dear cherished husband." As I opened it, I was met with the printed words, wishing I could convey just how extraordinary and remarkable you truly are. Your individuality is unparalleled, and my affection for you will last an eternity." Beneath that, my wife had inscribed a heartfelt note, expressing her observation of how many of our friends' marriages have unraveled over time, often linked to their intimate lives. "I hope that is not the destiny that awaits us. Your kindness to me is immeasurable, and I will not let you slip away. Even in the face of our differences, I hold a steadfast belief that we shall find our way back to one another in time. In the interim, my goal is to secure your joy. Thus, on this special occasion of your birthday, my present to you is Crystal. Cherish her in whatever way you desire, and know that you have my heartfelt blessing. I kindly ask that you hold your affection for me until the weekend draws to a close. May I pose a question? Did my gift resonate with you? I seek no further details. I hold you in the highest regard, wishing you a joyous birthday celebration. You have been cognizant of this since last night and continuing into today. During this time I sought answers indeed for several weeks." With a smile, I recognized the wish to keep the day lively, observing that plenty of time was still ahead. I cast my eyes upon the card, disbelief washing over me as I shook my head. "Is cake included with you as well?" I asked. "You'll have to wait and see," she teased, drawing nearer and pressing her soft form against me. She leaned in, savoring an extended, intimate kiss. "Shower," she murmured, pulling away from the kiss at last. "I suppose I should," I responded gently. I find myself pondering how best to convey my heartfelt appreciation to my wife for such a remarkable gift.